Yeah, I know. This is yet another glue test. Um, Watch through the end. It's kind of an interesting result. I'm really surprised how it worked out. But does tight bond stick to tight bond? Who ever thought to ask that question? I was asked a question of, we know that tight bond sticks to wood, and to a certain extent it sticks to the plastic because I have to peel it off pretty good. But does tight bond stick to tight bond? So if I accidentally spilled some tight bond on the wood and let it dry and I don't sand it off, will tight bond stick to the tight bond? And my initial thought was, yeah, sure it would. And that's way more glue than I'm going to need. But the only real way to find out is to try it out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue some tight bond, or I'm going to paint some tight bond on these two pieces of scrap wood that was in my burn pile. And then what I'm going to do is let it dry. I'm just going to paint it on like this and let it dry in a thick coat. I hate to, so there we go, just like that. Now tomorrow, hopefully that is nice and dry, and if it is, then what I'll do is I'll glue the two pieces together, and then we will see if the tight bond sticks to itself. My guess is it's going to work just fine, but we will find out tomorrow, or actually the day after tomorrow. The glue is dried overnight, and it's made actually a rather nice little finish on there. And now what I'm going to do is, I don't have any small bottles right now, so I'm going to go large with the large bottle. Put a big old blob of glue like that. That should be plenty. And I'm just going to glue this bad boy together. So just spread it out like normal. And in this case, I'm not going to put glue on both sides. I don't think that if it's going to work, it's going to work either way. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue one side and put them together. So there we go. That should do the trick. Glue side, glue side. I think 2 spring clamps should do the trick. It's been a couple hours since I glued this together. It's wow, it's sticking pretty good. All right, I'm gonna let it set until tomorrow, and then I'll try to pull it apart, see what happens. This is the process so far. I had 2 pieces of plywood, and I had sanded them and painted the inside of what was going to be inside, one side of each, with glue, and allow it to dry overnight. Then I went ahead next day and glued them together again, and after several hours, as you saw already, I wasn't able to move them, so it's just a good indication of a decent glue bond. And now it's been overnight, and there's some gaps here. So I'm going to try to bust it apart, see what happens. So here's a nice little gap here, where I wasn't as careful as I should have been. Interesting. So let me think about this for a second. That took some effort, but the glue is completely off of this side except for a couple small spots, and it all adhered to one other side. So I would say that it's a failure. Interesting. It did adhere. It took effort to remove it. However, definitely not as strong as if I had just glued it and squeezed it together and then let it stay. So I'm thinking the clamping is important. I found an article that I will have a link to below, and I'll try to remember to link in the actual video on YouTube, that discusses the importance of clamping wood glue. So yeah, it looks like this failed because I did not clamp the glue on in the first step. So who knew? Like I said, there is, except for a couple spots here, there is no glue on this side at all. It all peeled off into this side. So my thought is, by just putting glue on the surface that first day, it didn't soak in as well as if I had clamped it on. You know what I mean? Just going ahead and clamped it on. I'm going to call this, it worked, but why bother? I'm amazed. I really thought this was going to work better than this. I really thought it was going to bust apart, but you can see very well it didn't. So interesting. Good. Finally, after every woodworking project, you should always count your fingers. You end with 10. Good job. Okay, I was asked the question of how many glue tests can you have before people stop watching?
You're pushing your luck, buddy. This is probably already beyond the limit.